Do we have a list of all of the character names that were in the game there? Let me see.
I kind of have my top 5. Like
lay them out on us real quick.
I would be the go-to. First of all, like you said earlier, it's got to be Bond. But number 2 is going to be Xenia for reasons that I've already disclosed. She can choke you out with her thighs.
That's not in the game, though.
You ever see that at jiu-jitsu?
ChukTomahawk, it's so awesome to see you, man. How are you doing? Your guitars look nice and shiny there in the background.
Hey, Ovox, it's good to see you too, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. Those I dusted those yesterday, so there you go.
So they're freshly dusted gitters.
Yeah.
Freshly.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm kind of sticking to playing one, but I take care of the old ones too.
It sure beats those rust guitars, huh?
Man, that was so anticlimactic. Like I had been practicing that. I was gonna really wow you. I'd set the chords up and everything, and when I did it, it just went nowhere. It was like they changed, the controls changed somehow or something. But
that's
they
funny.
don't go very far.
I think I remember when they added instruments into Rust. That was funny.
They did like a whole band setup, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know
next thing we know, there's going to be there probably already is a streamer or YouTuber out there that only does Rust videos around the musical instruments.
Yeah, that must be on a PvE server because.
Yeah.
I got a message at 4:00 this morning that said I'd been killed in Rust. Someone had broken into our base apparently. So.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah. It's all right. At least the new Arc map's coming out soon.
Yeah. I said June is kind of vague, like is that?
Yeah, we're already halfway through it.
Yeah, has to be pretty soon. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Well, hey, you want to get into this bad boy?
Yeah, let's jump into it.
All right, let's jump right into it then. Welcome, listeners, gamers, non-gamers, PvEers, PvPers, and even NPCs. We don't discriminate. Hey, if this is your first time here checking out the New Wave Gaming Podcast, we really appreciate you. We hope you enjoy it. And if you're coming back to check out our 5th episode, well, hey, we also hope you enjoy it. I'm Ovox.
And I'm ChukTomahawk.
Hey, someone's checking us out in the Netherlands, man. I saw that on Spotify, and I was like, oh, sweet. That's awesome.
Yeah, it seems like there's I guess I'd never really considered what the gaming community was like in Europe, and we ran into all those folks on that Arc server, and now we see folks, from Europe on here. It sounds like there's a pretty interesting community there.
You better believe they're gaming hard across the pond, brother.
Rare.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, real quick, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have Facebook if you'd like to, like the page and check us out there. I think it's facebook.com/New Wave Gaming Podcast. We also have an email you can reach out to us at. It's ovoxandchuk@gmail.com. That's ovoxandchuk@gmail.com. We also got a YouTube channel up if you want to check us out there. I'm sure you can just type it in, New Wave Gaming. It'll pop up if you're on the YouTubes and not so much on the listening apps. But yeah, we thank you for joining us. And today we're going to get into a special game near and dear to a lot of us. Wouldn't you say, Chuck T?
For sure. I think, I feel like we could make an argument here for the best video game ever.
Oh, best video game? I don't know about that. There is a big question, I think, that we want to answer here. And we were actually, before hitting the record button, Tomahawk and I were kind of talking about how to approach GoldenEye 007, released on the Nintendo 64 back in August 25th, 1997. I was 10 years old. How old were you, Chuck T?
I would have been about 25.
A little bit older than myself.
Yeah, just still on that long plan at college there,
Yeah, baby.
Went in there with that 4-year plan.
Getting studied up.
9-year plan.
Just juicing that brain.
Yeah, working for the Forest Service in the summer and going to school. And
Sponging it up, baby. I love it.
yeah. Those were good years.
So I don't know about best video game ever, but there certainly is a lot of hype around GoldenEye 007 being the best shooter of all time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is really what we want to answer with this episode. We want to talk about a little bit about the past, about the movie, the game. We're not going to dive too much into the games that came after GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64. We will talk a little bit about I believe it's to be announced tomorrow, release of the remastered version with Microsoft Bethesda. I think they're going to be announcing that tomorrow. So we will talk about that towards the end of the episode. But I think, what do you say, Chuck T? That's probably a good way to approach this video game, this
Absolutely.
Legendary game.
No, I'm with you 100%. I think we need to kind of dive in there. I see this game pop up on all the best of lists, out there, and I still say we can make the argument for the best video game ever, even all things considered.
Oh, really? I don't know, man.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. Hey, I'm open. I'm open to it. But so GoldenEye 007, again, released in August 25th, 1997. I think that was 24 years ago. Chuck, did you happen to see what the very, very first GoldenEye game was? Did you see that anywhere in your research?
At first, as in like when they were developing it, or once it was released, or
No, just the first video game ever that was, James Bond related.
No, I kind of I sort of remember hearing something like that, but I don't remember actually what it was. So
It was a game called Shaken But Not Stirred. And I think, gosh, I don't want to go diving into
it's
Google,
a cocktail
but
sim.
it was released in 1982, I believe. And it was one of those Commodore 64 games, I think, man. I think it was text-based, too. Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
I might be wrong.
Those movements were
I might be
awkward.
wrong, yeah.
That was before motion capture.
Yeah.
The guy's running around with the gun. It looks like he has a question, like he's got his hand up.
So this game was based on the movie GoldenEye 007 that was released in 1995.
Yeah.
And that was actually... Go ahead, sorry.
I can't even go any further without thinking about that song by Tina Turner.
Oh, the intro song into the movie?
Yeah. And Tina Turner, man.
Why are you moving like that over there, Chuck T? Just kidding.
I don't know. I gotta get it's those that Xena on top, with those thighs, and then you see Tina Turner out there. I can't help but put two and two together there. So, but, yeah.
Well, Xena Onatop is one of the characters in the game, and we'll get into the characters. We'll try and. Isn't she?
I mean, yeah, she can choke you out with her thighs. I mean, that says character to me.
She probably knows jujitsu. Anyways, so 1995 movie was released. I don't remember. I don't have the numbers here, but it was a hit. And the franchise, they needed a hit because the other movies that had been coming out, I believe with Dalton. And I don't remember. I think Roger Moore was another one of the James Bonds. Like those,
Sean Connery.
Sean Connery,
James Bond, man. I mean, he was the man. And Roger Moore, though, I think I think for just about everyone, it goes to who the Bond was when they first were exposed to it. It kind of that one seems to resonate with folks.
Yeah, and we're just trying to lay groundwork here because if there's any listeners that have never played GoldenEye 007. I feel like this is an important factor to mention, is that this was a game based on a movie which came out 2 years prior to the release of the game. So the hype on the movie wasn't really at its peak anymore. And the main factor here is that we're talking about a licensed game. Like it came from a movie license, right? Mm-hmm. And up to that point, and still even up to today, you know, it's hard to say whether a game is going to be that good if it's based on a movie. You know, usually it's a quote unquote cash grab.
Yeah, you know, we saw that Ghostbusters game there on the Commodore 64 that kind of hit the mark, and it's almost more the exception than the rule that's going to work out. But yeah, I guess as I understand it, it was a couple years later, and Tomorrow Never Dies. The next Bond movie was about to come out, and so they kind of caught on the tail end of that hype to, you know, say here's the GoldenEye game. You know,
I see,
and yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think too, though. I think you're dead on when you say, you know, we have to point out that this was pulled from a movie because you get to be James Bond. I mean,
yes.
Everybody that's ever watched one of those movies wants to be James Bond, or like, you know, you
yes.
fantasize that, like, you know, you could, you know, talk to girls in that kind of way, and like, you know, get away with, you know, maybe a thing or two that just
blowing up an embassy or something.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, that's the whole point. Like, you want to be James Bond when you're watching those movies. You want his car, like, you want that watch, you know.
Yes,
like,
that suit,
you want
brother.
all those things, and like, this is as close. It's way closer than watching it. Like, you're actually in control, and you know, you hear that music in the background, and like, you know, it's a mood. It's a vibe.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
yeah.
So it's bringing a lot to the table. It's not just that, you know, hey, there's been this new movie and maybe it would work in a video game. Like, you know, I think I love the Mad Max movies, but the Mad Max video game never did really do it for me, you know. And so, yeah, you see these disappointment type situations. Even the Star Wars games at times, like, I feel like haven't lived up, or Star Trek games, you know, that like things that we love.
There was a Total Recall game. There was a Total Recall game. Remember with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Total Recall movie?
Yeah.
They made a game for that, man, and it did. Yeah. Isn't that the movie with the lady that had the 3 boobs? I don't think that was in the game.
It's going bad when they get up there in that colony, man. Yeah, they mess with people's minds.
I remember, gosh, this is so just a sign of, you know, young boy. I remember seeing that movie, and I remember seeing the lady with the 3 boobs, and I remember doing a double take, seeing if my parents were around and hitting the rewind button a couple of times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, this is VHS, baby. Here we go. Rewind.
This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? If my sexual bucket list has been expanded, like.
Okay. So yeah, so Total Recall is another example, and it from what I saw, it didn't really do too well. So you hit the nail on the head. Like, I remember seeing GoldenEye 007 was the very first James Bond movie that I saw. And man, I just remember him cruising in that car that he had that did all these, the car had gadgets of its own. You know, he was rolling around with, what's her name? Natalia.
Yeah.
I think that's her name. We'll get into the characters here in a minute, but just cruising around with her. And then he had that suit, man, and he always has that PPK with the silencer, that nice black polished pistol with the silencer. That loved it.
Yeah.
So same thing. When I saw that Nintendo 64 commercial come up on the TV,
it's go time.
It was just like, Mom, can I get a Nintendo 64?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're doubling down on it. You're doing chores like nobody's
and all you can hear from
there.
upstairs is, absolutely not.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
man.
Yeah. My dad was like, "You need one more thing to keep you in the house. Like, you need to get outside, son. Stack some wood, mow the yard. Yeah.
Go walk the dog or something."
Yeah.
So
I swear, I think he might have even understood, though, if I said I got to be James Bond. Everybody loves James Bond. And imagine if you were one of our listeners over there in the UK. Like it's like he's on the home team there. Like he's in the, what is it, the secret intelligence services, the SIS, what they call that. Yeah.
or like MI5 and MI6.
Yeah.
Which are offices of, I don't know the official name, but I think it's Special Operations Services or something to that effect. But it's ultimately MI5 and MI6, which are the intelligence agencies of the UK, I guess, or Great Britain or England. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's technicalities there. And one of them is more like operations, and the other one is more like, what is it, SIGINT, and which is signal intelligence, and, you know, more like on the intelligence side. Cool stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to
Well, it
be
just
James
seems like-
Bond. You know, when I saw the game come out on the commercials, I went from wanting to be an astronaut to being a secret agent, man.
Bam, right there. Yeah. I mean, what's not to love? It's the perfect job. I mean, you got, like you said, you got all the gadgets, you got the car, and I mean,
Yep.
you get the girl. Like, I mean, you get to travel. I mean, it's everything
Yeah.
you could want.
Exactly. And so what did this look like for us? Well, it may have looked different for me because I was a little bit younger. But what did this look like for us back then, 1997? Why was this so impactful for us? Apart from the fact that it was an opportunity to kind of get into the life of being a James Bond agent type. What are your thoughts on that? I think I know. Oh, go ahead. I'm just.
I see myself almost taking a little video game journey, like we've kind of gone on even on some of the last few episodes, where, like, you know, maybe there I branched out some in the Zort games and things like fantasy games, but kind of at the time this game had came out, like I had kind of gone into almost sports games exclusively. I was in a Madden phase of sorts, and you know, I was playing those games and you know, maybe would occasionally dabble in some Mario or something else over on, you know, a little more fantasy based. But this, like there weren't games that I was really playing the campaign as much in. And when I saw that I could be James Bond, like it opened up this world of this, especially since they went with the first person shooter style, that I've kind of been on ever since. I mean, we were playing Call of Duty a minute ago, like, you know. So I mean,
yes,
it was
we are
beginning,
addicted, ladies and gentlemen.
there was, you know, there was a path that started right there that I'm still on. That, you know, and I don't play Madden. I played a little FIFA, but you know, I think it changed a course for me in video games and opened up.
But
you know,
agreed. But what do you think it was that did that for you? Like, what was it what was the, like, if you take yourself back to 1997, pre Y2K, baby, pre the world is going to end because computers are going to shut down or something. I remember all that. Check that out, younger listeners.
Y2K,
Type in Y2K, you'll get a giggle. But anyways,
we survived it.
we did. So, like, well, I'll just go out and say it. I think it was the revolutionary aspect of the game. Because for me, seeing that commercial, I was seeing for the very first time some graphics that I was blown away by. I was seeing a first-person view of the, you know, his little pistol. I think it's called the PP7 in the game, but in real, or is it PP7 or the PPK, something like that. Anyways, I was seeing for the first time a game that was a lot like Doom in that it was first person, but the guy was like freely moving around and there were explosions and grenades were being thrown. And I remember seeing the image of James Bond pew, pew, shooting at the guy's head. And in the character, the AI, the bad guy in the game, responded in a very new way that I had never seen before. He didn't just like, James Bond shot the bad guy and the little enemy NPC thing didn't just like bloop, disappear like in a lot of other games I had played, like Donkey Kong, Mario. No, we had a character here that was emulating being shot in that respective body part and reacting to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm just seeing all these things in a short, brief commercial, and my mind is just going. Because there were like multiple things in that we were seeing for the first time. I know I just went on a rant there. That was kind of long, but that was what it was for me back then. I was just like, what? It was like there was I get to be James Bond factor, and then in a completely new looking style of game on a brand new system.
Yeah. 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 It opened up all those doors. I think if you think about, I think as we're coming down this Nintendo line, like coming from the Super Nintendo, like you said, it was more cartoonish to some degree, but they brought some folks in. I think one of the smartest things that I think one of the, like, not just that we have the James Bond factor, but one of the cool things about those James Bond movies were the action and also some of the scenescapes, like that the places they went, like where they went there in Cuba to that big satellite dish, and like where they were actually at that giant dam and things, and they I forget the guy's name, but one of the developers on this game was actually an architect. So I feel like we can see that in the game, like there's points that he has added to the creation as they spent, as I understand it, one of the first year was just like creating these scenescapes, and they were, if you think of a 2D world versus a 3D world, and also like an open world, like where normally there might just be this one path that was going to be taken by the character, where they had to have it, to do multiplayer and those kind of things, you had to have this open world. So like you said, you had a number of things coming together, and man, they did a good job. Like when he's jumping off of that dam, like
it's like, damn.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I mean, they took some time with that stuff, dude. I mean, they took a lot of time to make that right, I feel like, and it shows.
Okay, so we gotta unpack a little bit of that. So Martin Hollis, he was the lead dude, the lead honcho on this game. And you're right, they did a lot of innovative stuff. I don't know, some of these things we're going to reference make it sound like GoldenEye 007 was the first game to have these things. Maybe it was. But, you can double check that on the Googles and stuff like that. But these were certainly first-time things that we're talking about here. One of them was, yes, like these guys went out to the actual sets of the James Bond movie. They went to the locations, and they did a lot of development around the actual spots where this movie was created, is what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
Martin Hollis, the lead guy there, him and his team, brilliant in that regard. Another thing you mentioned was that they had created this kind of I don't want to call it an open world, but where they were inspired by Doom. There was a lot of inspiration behind Doom. Doom was a game that was kind of on a rail, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was the other inspiration, Virtua Cop. But the point is that they wanted to have a freely roaming character that can move left and right and strafe and jump and up and down, not on a rail, not moving in a programmed fashion, but giving complete freedom to the player and showing the weapon out in front in a first-person point of view. Very innovative.
Well, yeah, I think if you do find a bad part of a review, I don't know that I found a bad review, but let's say the review comes out like 9.7 and they're like, I didn't give this a 10 because people will complain about that they get confused in those missions. I've heard it said that it's almost assumed that you've seen the movie. And sort of what Bond needs to do there, even though there's a little bit of instruction there on the mission dossier. So and I think like that's one of the consequences of this. Like up until this point, we're used to being on this rail, like where it's never a question on where do you go.
Yeah.
But this game, like you've got a ton of freedom, to bounce around, and I think that's what brings in this replayability, and also is what opened the door for the multiplayer deathmatch, which
oh, dude,
is legend at this point.
You're hitting on a bunch of fascinating items, I suppose, that came up in researching GoldenEye, and I think it touches completely on what you're discussing. And there was kind of like a method behind the madness of that symptom of replayability and that feeling in the game that you're talking about. Because from what I could find, getting to it, is that they created the maps and the playing field, if you will, the actual physical maps in the game. They did it backwards. They did it. See, there was nobody like. I don't want to. I'm getting all excited. I don't want to get too off topic. We can go back on this, but to touch on that, they were doing it backwards in a sense that they built the maps first and then put objectives into them. Mm-hmm. Where most developers at that time, and I think today, I'm not a developer, but they usually draft the objectives first and then build maps around it. So Martin Hollis and his team at Rare, and Rare is in the United Kingdom, by the way. This is a UK team. We'll touch on them in a little bit. We'll discuss them. But they didn't really have anyone like saying, hey, you got to do it like this. You got to do it like that. They had a lot of freedom, and it allowed them to create the maps first and then build objectives, achievements, mission completion points, mission beginning points, kind of like at their will.
Yeah. And I think one of the consequences of that, one of the beautiful things that happened is they did that 3 levels to the difficulty. Like once you'd beat the game on the first difficulty setting, you could play it again, and there were additional objectives that had been added, and you could see how that if you had the maps done and you were sprinkling in those objectives after the fact, like that opened the door for that. If you'd have built the map around it, like it would have changed the game to add additional objectives for the next difficulty level. So, I see that come up in reviews a lot. That was one of the geniuses, that they actually, it behooved you to play that game again. Not only did you, get these additional objectives, you also could unlock cheat codes with doing it on different levels and things like that. There was a ton of motivation there to play it again. Number one, to play it, to unlock those things, and, also to play the campaign, and, to play it on all the difficulty settings, and the AI changed. The AI got smarter, as the difficulty levels went too. So, I thought that I can't help but bring us back to something you mentioned earlier, though, like that you picked up on in the commercial of the different parts that the person gets shot on. If you saw, like I even saw this guy like sneak up behind a guy and shoot him in the ass, and like he turns around and grabs his ass, like.
Yeah. I remember that, and he does a little bunny hop.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my booty.
Yeah. Somebody did like a little meme video. It was like, when your friend doesn't cover your ass, and it was that guy jumping. Like the foresight to put that in, and those funny little moments that can develop, when you're raining bullets out like that.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we backtrack real quick just to lay to set the scene a little bit in terms of the development team and kind of like their whole vision for the game, because that really evolved on the spot in a lot of ways. These things that we're discussing, enemy AI, being on rails versus being a freely walking game where you can strafe right, strafe left, completely control the character. Did I already mention the AI thing?
Mm-hmm.
Of the there's bullet drop when you see the throwing knives. There's actually drop with just a bunch of different things. So these guys, Rare, think they were working for Nintendo at the time, back then. And Nintendo had the license for GoldenEye for James Bond using the actor Pierce Brosnan, whom appears in the 007 game. So they had that IP, that intellectual property, and they're like, hey, we want to build. I think the owner, I don't remember his name, but the dude in charge of Nintendo was like a fan of GoldenEye. He's a fan of James Bond. He also wanted to be James Bond. You know what I'm saying? and he's like, hey, who wants to make a James Bond game? And everyone was kind of like, well, licensed games, they don't really do that well. And then Martin Hollis, who's got a total 80s look, man. When you take out pictures of him, he's a cool dude. He looks like a cool dude. He's like, yo, let's do it. Let's make this James Bond game. I want to do it. And his condition was, from what I could see in the articles that we checked out, was that he's like, yeah, we'll do this thing, but it needs to be on the new system that Nintendo is going to be putting out, which was the Nintendo 64. Mm-hmm. Only at that time, it was called the Ultra 64. Mm. And these guys, man, Hollis and his team, they didn't really know too much about the Ultra 64, which became the Nintendo 64. They didn't have a development kit. They didn't have a controller for the thing. They were using a modified Sega Saturn controller. Yeah. And they were building the game essentially on a huge Silicon Graphics, like refrigerator-sized computer. Kind of just winging it, bro. Can you imagine that? Like nowadays, that would not fly for game development. Oh yeah, guys, go ahead. Just develop it. Yeah, go for it.
I read a little bit about that too, where they just sort of assumed what it would probably have, and what the next generation of consoles were sort of about, and made their best guess at it, and had to have some flexibility in there for once they got those specs. And yeah, that'd be tough. I could see that being, an excuse someone would use as why a game didn't work out, rather than, it almost seems like a place where the chips were stacked against them in a little ways.
There had to have been, there had to have been people in Rare, in the larger scheme of things within Rare or within Nintendo, apart from the actual head dude, because he obviously wanted to have a James Bond game. But there had to have been folks that were just like, I don't know about this James Bond game these guys are making, man, because they're doing everything backwards. They're creating the maps before the objectives. It's a licensed thing. It's probably not going to be that great based off of other games that come out this way. There's only 10 dudes on the team, and 8 of them have never made a game before. We haven't mentioned that yet.
Yeah.
I saw conflicting numbers from 12 people on the team, 10 people on the team, but I don't think there were ever more than about 10 people on that team, including Martin Hollis, the lead dude, and only 2 of them had worked on games before, which were Donkey Kong Country and Killer Instinct. Both were dope games. Yeah, I think I read Hollis was the second in command on the arcade version of the Killer Instinct, and like I mentioned earlier, they had an architect in there. They had some other guy, I think, that had just transferred from he was a lawyer or something. Well, there was a biochemist. Is that who you were talking about?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
David Dirk, I think. Yeah, and he was actually in the game as a
Doak, maybe was his name.
Dr. Doak. That's it.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's all these little things that came together that are just so strange, especially in today's standards, that it's just so cool, man. I mean,
I can, I'm sure, you've experienced this too. At times I've been with say trying to accomplish something with a group, and there's something to be said for being an underdog and kind of having nothing to lose. I can remember, maybe a high school football game going into playing a bigger school, and it's really it being expected that we lose. There's a kind of looseness there that kind of fosters creativity, trick plays and things that we might use, and we tend to still get our ass kicked ultimately when it was over. But I can see how there's some freedom there, that allowed you to go into new places. Because you kind of have these things that maybe you can point to that, why it shouldn't go well. So why not, let's try this other stuff too, and
yeah, man. And I just like if any listeners hear this that have never played GoldenEye before or that are younger, I'm not going to go out and say that it's going to be the funnest game that they've ever, dabbled with, but I feel like it's an important game to try and play just for, the historical purpose of it or sense of it, looking back and just looking at these mechanics in their birth, if you will. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but a lot of these things were so new. And now that we've kind of like painted that background and we got this team of young developers that were mostly just hired, like just fresh off the gaming market. They were brand new. Got Martin Hollis kind of leading the show there. They have a lot of bandwidth to try new things. And at the same time, there's a lot working against them. The movie had already been out for 2 years. They didn't have a development kit of the Nintendo 64 until late in the game. What are some of the things, Chuck T, Tomahawk, what are some of the things that came out of this creative freedom that they have? We've mentioned a few of them, but maybe now we can be more surgical about like touching on some of these amazing things that maybe weren't the very first time that they ever appeared, but were certainly like that made their momentum, in GoldenEye 007.
Yeah, a few things come to mind. One of the first is the sort of aim assist.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it added for playability, like, and they also, I don't know that I recognized that it existed. They implemented that in a way that it still seemed like I was controlling all of the shooting, and I wonder how that programming looks, because you do miss a lot, but I think after the first miss or two, especially if you've gotten fairly close, it adjusts for you, and it kind of enables this sort of run and gun feeling that if just left to its own mechanics, like say if like you're probably familiar with how the aiming works on the sniper rifle with this game, like where it's more free like that. Like I don't think you could run through the enemies quite like that, and it's been added to every game since. I feel like I going back to Warzone and that kind of thing. I think especially on the console side, there's some aim assist there. It's subtle. It's still subtle, but it's there. And I think that was definitely one of the main ones.
Important. So important, because the Nintendo 64 controller only has one analog stick.
And
there's only one stick on there.
Well, and I think it pointed out to us that we needed another one. Like
Yes.
when you saw that character coming through there, like kind of with both of his shoulders turning when he was aiming.
Like, must have a sore neck.
Yeah, and you had to to get your whole body over there to kind of get that angle on that gun. It told us that we needed that, and as I understand it, there was a mode where you could use two controllers.
I heard about people doing that, but I think that was like a complicated feat, man. It wasn't like a simple thing to do. I don't think. I don't know.
I want to say there had to be some mod go down there to get that going on, but I think the way I view that in this case, it let us know that we needed that. It didn't exist in the controller that came out with the N64, and it let us know that we needed it. It didn't. And we have it now. Like we've got dual analogs.
Yeah, we do, and I think you're 100% correct. GoldenEye absolutely had to have had an impact on that, on the overall understanding of that. Okay, we have two opposable thumbs. Maybe we need two thumbsticks or joysticks on the controllers, and it was certainly evidenced in GoldenEye. Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, came out like half a year before GoldenEye did. So another first-person shooter. Turok was so fun, but it was probably another game where we got a chance to see that maybe dual analog sticks was going to be the way to go. And then the auto aim component, man, if anyone out there can, send us confirmation of this, or like somewhere where it clearly shows what the first game was, please do. That'd be great. I was looking for it hard. I could not find it anywhere. But man, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think GoldenEye is the very first, GoldenEye 007, Nintendo 64, of course, is the very first game with aim assist.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was.
I feel like it was presented to me that way in a video that I saw, that I didn't necessarily vet that, but I took it. I don't remember any other game of that nature, and you definitely feel it. And like even now, I feel like if I went in to play Warzone on my PS4 and I went in there and turned that off, I'd miss it, tremendously, especially like facing off on folks on PC.
Yep.
Yeah.
What else? What's another game breaker, or not game breaker, but
well, the multiplayer, man. I mean, that multiplayer.
I think we should hold that to the end, don't you think? Because that's kind of the main.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Let's get into it.
I think we could, just in the context of your question of what are the things that were that they did first or new, we can mention it, and we can go deeper, a little bit later, because I feel like too we've presented this question of best video game ever, possibly, and all these factors have to lay out there. Like I think we even have to think about the definition of best. Like it can be a bit of a subjective thing.
It certainly is.
Yeah. So I think like maybe the Webster definition of best is of the most excellent, effective, or desirable type or quality. So
yeah, well, look, we've opened the
most excellent.
Yeah, the can is open. Let's talk about the multiplayer component. So, in the context of that creative liberty that these guys had in Rare, they faced some setbacks. They certainly did. I mean, they didn't have a development kit. They faced some setbacks. They faced some delays. And they did. The game did get delayed. And one of the reasons it got delayed a bit is because I think like during the phase that the game was basically done, they were just doing little polishing things, and they were just kind of pimping it out, finalizing it. I think they were 2 months from release or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But one of the team members said, hey, a gentleman, I think it was Doak, actually. I think it was David Doak. Somebody was pushing Nintendo to have 4 controller ports because they were seeing a lot of the hype and the clout around games like, what was it, Mario Kart, where there were multiple players, something like that. They wanted to have that for GoldenEye. So or no, that wasn't the timeline of things, because the Nintendo 64 hadn't come out yet, but they knew that it was going to have 4 controller ports. So they decided within the last months of before releasing the game, hey, let's add in multiplayer.
Yeah.
So it was like a whim, like, hey, why don't we add this thing real quick?
Yeah.
And it changed it was so huge when they did that.
Yeah. I took it like, he just glanced over and saw those 4 ports and was like, well, sure, what we could do. Because you do have games like it's pretty rare for a game to hit that just right. I'm thinking of Gauntlet, like that arcade version of Gauntlet, like at times 4 people at our local arcade. I'd mentioned before that place Charlie's. Like, man, that was fun, and you'd be waiting for your turn, like to get in there with the group, and it would call you out. Like I remember it'd be like, Elf shot food. I'd be like, fuck.
Oh, shoot. Man, the only other game that I really remember having like a team scenario thing going on, well, no, there's plenty of games out there, but, Metal Slug comes to mind a lot. Mm-hmm. And look, there's a couple more things that I wanted to touch on, but let's keep talking about this multiplayer.
Yeah, and is in the context of things that sort of this game did first. I think even though it was added as a whim, like it opened up like the multiplayer. Like I think we saw the first stream snipers like go in there. Like we saw all sorts of things. Like a can of worms was opened. That experience of the places that people played these in dorm rooms and where you would have this group of folks watching the other people playing the game like that we just hadn't saw before, and it brought people together in a really cool way. And
yeah, and it had a bunch of modes. It wasn't just like multiplayer and it started and you and whoever happened to be there was you just play. They had a classic deathmatch. They had a mode called You Only Live Twice.
Yep.
They had a mode called The Living Daylights, which is like a flag tag. The Man with the Golden Gun. License to Kill. I mean, these like 4 different modes right there. And then there were scenarios where you could play 2v2, 3v1, or 2v1. That's where the battles really started.
Absolutely. And you see some of these modes in the multiplayer on Modern Warfare today. Like there's a capture the flag type situation, that's similar to one of those modes that you only die twice. I wish they would bring that in. Like that would almost be like a middle ground. I guess with the gulag on Warzone, we kind of do die twice. So
yeah.
Like maybe some sweet spot where it's kind of a you're dead on Resurgence, like is kind of like that. So yeah, I think it's sort of a sweet spot between you only getting one life and unlimited lives. Somewhere in between there.
Yeah, and I think the developers were, when they were trying to come up with these modes, maybe they were just looking for inspiration within the same story that they were working on. You only live twice, or you only, what is it? What's the name of these things again? You Only Live Twice, The Man with the Golden Gun, License to Kill. All of those game mode names are inspired by the same story that they're working on. So I think very creative, very clever. Do you have any, just real quick, just for fun, do you have any multiplayer stories or like memories or like a single moment that you remember where you were just like, God, this game, what is going on?
I have to mention that at some point I was at work and we were there on a hotshot crew, and we had like 20 guys together, and we had all come from different places in the United States, and we were based there in Mississippi, and they had sent us out to Nevada, and we'd been out there for like 21 days, I think, and we got like a sort of we'd been fighting some fires, and it had kind of calmed down, and they had us at this staging area, and idle hands are the devil's workshop. So, you kind of had to have something for us to do, even though we were kind of resting or whatever. So they brought in this Nintendo 64, and not every single person on the crew was into it, but there were probably about, I would say, 10 or 12 of us that were, and we all packed in this one. They had us set up at this school in Pioche, Nevada. And we were all just like piled in there playing this game 4-on-4, and you had at least 2 teams waiting to get on.
Damn.
And
Bro.
It almost seems too like in these multiplayer games, like,
was there ventilation in there?
It was like a classroom, so there was a good bit of room. Like we had everybody had chairs and things, and we were just all giving each other hell. Like it always seems like there's one person in a multiplayer that can't find a gun. Like there's one guy that's got like every good gun, and then there's the one guy like he can't even find the club. Like he's just roaming around, like with his fists out, and like we're like it's almost like embarrassing.
This isn't fair.
You're just like, God,
you're just like, man. Get good, brother.
Yeah. I mean, and the competition in this room was of such that if you'd have done that for too long, somebody might have took that controller from you and been like, your turn's over, man. Like so it was kind of tense, and we had a blast, and I just remember it being like the clout that I felt like, I did okay. I don't think I did the best, but I definitely proved myself in that game. And
my God,
it carried
dude.
on, like it carried over into real life, like, back out on the forest fire.
Like the northwest corner of Nevada's burning down. Where's Fire Team 1?
Yeah.
Where's the ammo?
It's
Where's the ammo?
Holy shit, we need to get this on the GPS. Who can do it? It's like, John, beat GoldenEye. I got this. Like, so, no, just a great memory, man. I think.
So it basically kept you guys like, occupied, kept your minds occupied, kept you guys all like squared away and chill while killing time, fighting fires.
Yeah, like a staging sort of situation, waiting for the next one to come. It had kind of been a rainy couple days, and it was just a situation where we could kind of let our hair down a little bit, and they have they had some movies and things like that kind of relax folks, but that's my best memory of that. In college,
did they have Tremors? Did they have Tremors in the box of movies?
I
don't know
remember
why.
some Robin Williams movie, and we also watched Major Payne. Like Major Payne was the
That movie, man.
He spares no one in that movie, and a lot of my friends grew up there in Mississippi. They love to cut up all the time anyway, so we were quoting that movie and giving each other shit about that video game, and just had a good time with it, and it's really one of my favorite memories of this game, and why it's kind of cemented into my memory as a really fun one, and possibly the best that I've ever played. But I think that's why that's important that we mention in this context of like things that it did first. That multiplayer and getting those 4 folks in the game is something I've tried to capture ever since. So
yeah, man.
So.
Gosh, the multiplayer without a doubt is one of the hugest factors of the game. It's one of the hugest factors of the game's success. We'll have to pull this up here in a moment, but I think, all of the game's success largely was because of the multiplayer. And something that we haven't really mentioned that I think is like huge, especially for younger gamers to like actually just kind of think about, is like, there was no such thing as, there may have been, but I don't remember I don't think online gaming was even a thing yet. 1997. No. Anyone that you played multiplayer with was sitting right next to you. Mm-hmm. And that game could make or break relationships, man. I never saw any like super gnarly scenarios, but like I just think about gaming today, I think about Warzone, I think about Fortnite, I think about even Ark and the multiplayer environment, and just how toxic it can be. How amazing it can be, but also how toxic it can be. And then, like, part of me is just like, man, I don't know if we want to have like the newer generations of gamers playing GoldenEye sitting next to their teammate. There might be like some crazy shit pop up. When you got that death chat sitting right next to you, man, it's like, I don't know about that.
Oh yeah, somebody might be swinging there before it's all over, and I kind of hit on like as much as I have that great memory of that, I'm not kidding you when I say like if you were running around long enough without a gun, somebody might have said like, look, let me have that thing. Like, you'd had to like fight to keep it. So.
Oh man, that's something. Yeah, I think that's a huge factor. Sitting together versus sitting across the world from your co-players. Right.
I'm thinking about too, like just how, it's almost like there's this online world that we play these things in that allow people that freedom to, maybe talk crap like they wouldn't necessarily have the confidence to do in person. And boy, those rules are you're right there in that room together. Those rules are there. Like, dude, I sent you that one video of that one guy getting hyped up. I think I might let him win if we were in the same room together. He was giving me those Denzel Washington crazy vibes.
Yeah, the Training Day vibes, man. Do you have what it takes? Chuck 2?
Yeah, he got hyped up, and I was like, "Whoa!" Yeah, I wouldn't talk a lot of crap to that dude. I don't think if I was winning the Warzone. So, winning in the multiplayer on this game. So, yeah. That's a factor. One interesting thing, at some point, I think that when they were working out the reload for this, they thought about having to have you take the rumble pack out and put it back in. Did you read that?
Yeah, I was just gonna read that actually. That's man, I'm glad they didn't do that because that kind of would have been a little douche. You know what I'm saying? You got to obligate everyone to buy the rumble pack just to reload. Brilliant idea though.
It's kind of what I'm talking about. Like the reason I brought that up is like this barrier, this online, like it was another way to kind of bring it into real life to some degree. I felt like it would have worn out. Like Nintendo just hadn't made those things to be jammed in and out over and over. I mean, like you think about 4 people playing all night long in an all night dorm session. I mean, like, yeah, but it would be funny. And it does make me wonder, like, what would that be like in Warzone? You know, if I was over here, like, you heard me knock my drink off the counter here in my house. Yeah.
So let me read this real quick. It's an article from 2020 on GameRant.com, and it's 10 interesting facts I think about GoldenEye 007. And yeah, it says right here, number 2 out of 10, reloading almost required rumble pack insertion. Both Nintendo and Rare have been known for pushing boundaries with game-related innovations, certainly during the 90s. Given the ambitious pedigree of the British studio, it shouldn't be too surprising that they were exploring unique control methods with GoldenEye. Yet few could imagine just how obscure and distinct one of their initial concepts was. At one point, Rare had thoughts towards implementing a realistic-feeling reload by way of making the player actually reinsert the rumble pack into the controller. It would certainly have helped emulate the experience, though probably would have been quite annoying and cumbersome in the long term. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... And if I don't know, when we got the Nintendo 64, it didn't include the rumble pack, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm wrong. If it included it, that wouldn't have been too bad. But if you had to go and buy the rumble pack just to be able to reload in GoldenEye, that would have been kind of, it would have needed to have been an option.
Do you know where we live? We would go like there in Mexico and in East Tennessee, we'd have figured something you could jam in and out of there for sure. Ain't buying that thing. Give me a paper clip and some cardboard.
I'll go find some
duct tape.
I'll go walk outside and look for some palo de arco or something like that. Some dried cacti. And then there'll be a dry piece of cholla sitting around here I can jam up in there.
Yeah. Never mind, I don't know the first thing about electronics. I'll just stick some
just put this right in here.
Yeah. Get a gum wrapper and a freaking like a paper clip. I can make this happen. It would have been, somebody would have figured it out, and then the word would have spread. So, yeah, I'm sure there'd have been somebody would have figured out a workaround for that rumble pack, I would say.
Man, I still find it fascinating that they were using a Sega Saturn controller, during most of the development of the game.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
Testing, yeah.
So, is there anything? What else was very innovative and new? Some of the things that I can think about that I remember just going like, God, I love this game, man. Just playing through it and coming back and back and back and playing it over and over and over again was the fact that it had objectives, right? Like you didn't just start the game and move forward, kill the bad guys, and then you got to the end, kind of like as if you were on a rail. We talked about that earlier. But there were actual objectives, and you couldn't complete the game until those objectives were completed. That was dope. That was innovative. Right? Yeah,
and I like that they left it just a little vague on how it got done. That kind of added to that mystery of it, and I could see why.
And you had to go to the watch. You had to open up the watch menu, man, which was another... Right? I mean, inside the watch, you'd hit the start button, I think, and James Bond's left arm would come up, and you'd see a watch, which I don't think any other game had ever done before. And inside that, you could look at your objectives, I think you could look at like Intel. You could, save game and all that stuff. And there were a few other things you could use. It had a list of like specialty devices that could use. Do you remember the watch laser?
Yeah.
You could watch up and laser shit, boy.
Oh, dude, I want that watch today. Like, I think I even looked up like the watch that James Bond has on in the movie is actually made by a company called Omega, and I think it's called the Seamaster. And it doesn't do the things exactly like it's more like a diver's watch. It looks like, but it's nice. And dude, I think that thing will set you back about $3,000 right now. So
no, don't do it, Tomahawk. I know how you are, man. No, dude.
No, if it was like the one in the game, I'd do it right now.
Why are you opening up that website on the other screen? No, Tomahawk. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, and we got to mention right there when you hit that button, like when you started talking about what you were seeing, I started thinking about what you were hearing. Like when that pause music theme came on, dude. I mean, it kind of lulled you into thinking like this is just going to be the regular James Bond thing. And then all of a sudden, like it just had this, like somebody freestyling on a keyboard or something in the background that was really good, man. That pause music, I think the song is actually called Watch, like is legendary, dude. I mean,
I think a lot of GoldenEye fans and otherwise would agree that the soundtrack and the score of the GoldenEye 007 game was perhaps even better than the actual movie. It was amazing. It contributed to the feeling of you were in the game, that you were James Bond.
It did. It really did. And I feel like this watch music was the pause music was my absolute favorite. There I'm gonna throw a hot take in here, like a little controversial. Is there's kind of a whininess to that like the general like theme that's playing in the background during the multiplayer that I become aware of it being 8-bit sort of sound like just to some degree, but man, that pause music, like I feel like dancing when I see that. Like I want to do like one of them Fortnite dances.
I see. Wait, how did it go? Ding 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 ding. You're just scrolling through your watch looking for the laser or the proximity mines.
Dude, there's tons of TikTok videos where people are like, they're pausing it and they're kind of walking away, and then it catches them. They're like, dang. There's even one that's got Jay-Z in the studio and like he's doing some other things, but they've synced up the head bobs with that music.
And he's just head bobbing to the James Bond tune. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think there's a huge thing that we kind of stepped over, and that was the stealth elements of the game. Here's another potential first. Huge asterisk on the potential. But it was perhaps the first game with these stealth elements.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It maybe not the first, because I think that PlayStation had already come out, and I think they had games out already. Don't quote me on this, but I think Metal Gear Solid may have already been out. I think maybe Siphon Filter had already been out, and those games definitely have stealth to them. So don't quote me on that, but it certainly did bring the stealth mechanic to Nintendo 64.
I think if it did have it, you were on a rail like we talked about earlier, and it kind of, it took something out of it. Man, there's that one part in this game where you're climbing through those HVAC vents, and you come in and shoot that dude in the head
when he's on the pooper.
In the shitter there. Man, great day. Like you feel like James Bond, man.
Dude,
I mean,
I love that part.
Something interesting I read of one of the ways they accomplished this is when they had programmed in that when you fired your pistol, there was a radius that went out that alerted all of the AI in that area that to come and get you. But if you fired it a second time, that circle increased, and if you fired it a third time, it increased yet still. So just think how nuanced and realistic that is. So if you just shoot that one time with the silenced gun, or even one time with the regular gun,
yeah, like maybe one bad guy heard, maybe.
Yeah. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. Like, I remember a lot of these games that did have some stealth element, especially to a mission. Once you had alerted everybody, it was pretty much over. But this, like, you know, you could kind of maybe go a little awry, but, you know, you kind of pull it back together with just being real slick,
and,
you know, with your shots.
Yeah, dude. And you could destroy the alarms and shoot out the cameras.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
Did that not make you feel like James Bond?
Well, it tied you into that environment, like that. You know, we talked about these beautiful visuals and scenescapes that they had done, bringing in the architect and everything, and you know, you were suddenly interacting with those alarms and things in a way that we hadn't quite saw it. Like, it is definitely another innovation that you could blow all kinds of stuff up in that game.
Dude, locks, alarm buttons, glass, boxes, computers.
Proximity mines.
Dude,
like
blowing shit up left and right, man. Matter of fact, I remember like me and Fist Pump, my brother, we'd just like go into multiplayer and just be like, what's up, brother? Rockets only? Rockets only. And we just, you remember that rocket launcher, dude? You remember that thing? It was long and gray, just stick like through half the screen, and when you'd fire it, it would make this weird like, it'd make this weird sound. And just these explosions. Oh gosh, so much fun.
Dude, Pepe, he's still deadly with that RPG.
Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah. Yeah.
Think about it. So yeah.
Yeah, he still uses
that
those.
makes me have to ask, like, what do you feel like your best memory of this game is? Like it,
you know,
in
I was
total life. I feel like it has to include Pepe to some degree.
Fist Pump, Pepe Tortilla. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of my best multiplayer memories are playing GoldenEye 007. Absolutely, for sure, 100% hands down. But I think my best single nostalgic new wave gaming memory, if I could say that, new wave gaming memory, you know, is just the way the game actually really did, while in that moment, make me feel like James Bond. And I say that, and it sounds kind of like shallow, like, well, yeah, man, you and all of us, bro. You know, welcome to the club. But like, it was so depthful with me in that, like, I would literally only try and play the game using the PPK or the PP7, you know, with the black silencer. I tried to literally like only play as James Bond, like Pierce Brosnan would. So like,
Yeah.
I would, if I had the black PPK with the silencer, I would only use that. Even if I had access to the guns in the game had different names for legal purposes back then. They had to like change the names. But like, you know, I would never pick up the AK. I would never pick up the MAC-10 and, you know, the RCP-90 unless that was the only thing available. I would really try and deliver myself into the storyline. And not play as a player, but I would try and play as James Bond.
Yeah.
And that's my single, like, just every time I remember very well, just turning the game on and just going, all right, it's time to go save the world.
You know, one of the smart things I think they did right there of that, even though we're in first person, you know how it shows it as a third person for just a second? Like you,
yes.
It's almost like you feed into his head. Like it kind of, it ties into exactly what you're saying. Like it kind of put you in that character. And, you know, and I had mentioned it earlier, is one of the things this game brought to the table is you get to be James Bond. Like, I mean, in these movies, they've been going on for a minute, and like, yeah, this is as good as it gets. Like, because there's kind of this weird concept. I remember, you know, being around 25 years old at this time, figuring out what I was going to do with myself, and
you were fighting forest fires, man. What are you talking about? You were doing a lot more than a lot of folks were.
But I can remember, as things were kind of taking off with that and just getting out of college, you're kind of figuring out your identity. And my dad had this narrative of that, I think it's me and my buddy Alex kind of playing this video game. Like, I think if we were sitting there and we were like Toe Jam and Earl or something, like it's one thing, but I mean, we were James Bond. Like you know what I mean?
Get off my back.
Well, yeah. Did I mention that you get to be James Bond? He's like, oh, okay.
When was the last time you got to be James Bond? Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah. And there's also this concept. I feel like you kind of get out of these games what you put into them, and it sounds like you bought in, a whole hog. And I've kind of mentioned that in some of the like survival games we play and whatnot. If you really put yourself in that character and sort of accept, your role in that universe, it can be a fun experience, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it really can. Gosh, I'm trying to think of what was your favorite level, Tomahawk?
I feel like,
and I'm talking campaign.
I hear you. I'm going to say facility most likely.
Same here.
Yeah. I think just like comes to mind, most of all, but I have to say, like, even though I've talked about like kind of the replayability, like I probably went through the campaign, 2 or 3 times at most, and spent a lot more time in that multiplayer. And I think it kind of, especially as it came back to replayability, like say if I was sitting down at this game in 2000, 2001, type time frame, like it mostly was some friends were over and I had convinced them that this was going to be a good time. And, secretly thinking like I'm about to just jack y'all up. And, that's where it went for me. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I like, in most multiplayer situations, especially, I like a world that's a little bit smaller, like Nuketown type situation, shipment there on Modern War. I like it to be a little more, up close and personal. So the larger levels that, you had room to run around like Aztec and whatnot. I just, they weren't my favorites.
Yeah. Facility was. And just to make sure my memory's not failing me here, but that's the one, right, where you're in the vents and then you come down on top of the guy and yeah.
You can die in a bathroom, which is really one of my life goals. Like,
gosh, man. Yeah, that was so much fun. And I remember, I'm trying to think of some other gadgets. We had the laser watch, proximity mines, timing mines.
That James Bond had a BMW in this one instead of the Aston Martin. Like, that's a little different. I have to say I like the Aston Martin maybe just a tad bit better, but that German engineering is hard to beat. So,
did he have a actual vehicle in the?
I don't know that it appears in the game. It's definitely in the movie. They spend a good bit of time in the movie, like with him, being shown it by the folks there at. MI6, I think it is, especially the older guy that's in there. I forget his name. But what do you feel like you're? I mean, I guess you've already said James. You were embodying James Bond. But if you had to play another, if I already snagged James Bond in the multiplayer, who are you going to?
Damn. Am I able to activate cheat codes and use secret players?
Yeah, I'm gonna get all of them.
Jaws. I'm going to pick Jaws because if I pick Odd Job...
You're a damn cheater.
Oh, guys, gamers, I wish you could see Tomahawk's face when I said that. He gave me the evil eye. You damn cheater.
Kind of reminds me of your art character. He's quite a short little guy.
Why would that make me a cheater? Why would that make me a cheater, Tomahawk? Tell everyone.
It's unfair. You had to aim down to hit him. Like, he's shorter than everyone. Jaws is actually taller than everyone, as best as I remember. But Odd Job, it's almost like they got him like he's not like that in the movie exactly. He's not that much shorter. So I don't know, but just the fact that you had to aim down to hit his little
You feel like it's unfair to
cheeky
Oddjob?
self.
He got a bad rap, man. Everywhere I look, every GoldenEye 007 page, it just says if you use Oddjob, you're you're cheating.
Yeah, and it's like if I press you on that and you still stick with Oddjob, you're hiding something. You're hiding some like inability that
There's something we haven't talked about yet. It's like I can already see it. Like I pick Oddjob, click, I pick him, and then you turn the game off, and you like turn around in the chair and look at me like, "What's wrong, man? What do we need to talk about?"
yeah. Let's unpack this, Ovox. Like, I feel like there's something bothering
Why are you picking
you just
Oddjob?
can't really... Yeah.
Yeah. I'd pick Jaws. Do we have a list of all of the character names that were in the game there? Let me see.
I kind of have my top 5. Like
Lay them out on us real quick.
I would be the go-to. First of all, like you said earlier, it's got to be Bond. But number 2 is going to be Xenia Onatopp for reasons that I've already disclosed. She can choke you out with her thighs.
That's not in the game, though.
You ever see that at jiu-jitsu? Like, anyone ever put you in a thigh lock, son?
They call it a triangle.
Great day.
I would love for Onatopp to triangle me.
Oh, my Lord. There's that one part in the movie, I kind of thought like her and Bond were I couldn't tell if they were fighting or getting it on. Like, and then I figured out they were fighting later on, but I thought they were like in a love embrace there for a second. Dude, she clamps down on him with them thighs and like his eyes bulge out.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Well, who else?
Yeah, so number 2, Xenia Onatopp will be me, and then I gotta kind of identify with my man. That he's like an ex KGB agent.
Dmitry Zakovsky? No, what?
Yeah, Valentin Zakovsky. He's kind of got my kind of body, and I don't know. It's kind of like in the movie. I want to say he's kind of like somebody that Bond's had a little bit of entanglement with in the past, but they're having to kind of work together in this movie. So,
yep.
Yeah, I'd probably go there. Just because I like to be represented on TV or represented in the game.
What about 4 and 5? That's three players. Who's 4 and 5? Who's your 4th and 5th favorite? You're not going to mention old Boris Grushenko?
He's kind of a nerd. I had Jaws down there,
and we're not.
5, and then I've got 006 there. That Alec. How do you pronounce his name? Trevelyan. Yeah. You got to go 006. I mean, he's kind of the bad dude in this one. They kind of fake his death and all that, but yeah, I'd go with him. I think just because it kind of fits. But
I'm gonna blow my nose here real quick.
If you can't find that PPK, PPP7 or PP7 gun, what are you going to? The Klob? Is it the Klob your first choice other than the PP7?
I'm sorry, I got the sniffles. RCP-90 all day. I loved that thing, man. It's so fast, and it's a gun that's kind of continued on in other. I mean, plenty of weapons in first-person shooter games have carried on, but the RCP-90 has carried on as well. In fact, even in Warzone, we use it. But it's the P90 in Warzone.
That's the same one we've been using recently, right? Yeah.
Yep.
As I'm journeying to start a new character there. Wow.
Yeah, but real quick, just to name them off the characters real quick, at least some of the main ones. We've got James Bond himself, of course, as ChukTomahawk mentioned. Alec Trevelyan, which is the main Bond villain in the game and in the movie, or the antagonist, I think it's called. We've got Boris Grushenko, which is kind of like the nerdy computer dude, and friend of the main lady, which is Natalia Simonova, very cute in the movie.
She was like trapped. She had already been trapped by those Yanis folks, as I understood it.
She was in the helicopter.
To be a scientist, and her and Bond kind of met in captivity there
in that helicopter.
Yanis folks, yeah.
General Aramov, Dr. Doak, Dmitry Mishkin, Odd Job, bunch of classic characters.
Yeah, it's interesting that they kind of had, they felt like they had free reign with all the Bond things. And I understand it, in the multiplayer, at one point they had all the old Bonds in there, and they had to take it out because maybe Sean Connery kind of preceded some sort of agreement that they had because of the older movies.
I don't know. I saw stuff about it being kind of something that Sean had mentioned. But then I think the larger dynamic with that was that, is it EAC? There's a larger parent company that owns the overall rights to the James Bond license, and they basically came in and were like, nah, sorry, because they added in all the James Bonds in the multiplayer, as you mentioned. And then when they finally, because remember, multiplayer was at the very end of the stretch, like it was going to be a single player game. And then that one guy in the team was like, no, let's make it multiplayer. And they started working on it super fast, showed everyone, and everyone was like, this is dope. This is great. It's going to be amazing. But these folks, I don't know if it was EOC or EAC, or maybe if it was MGM, but it was, kind of those uppers that were like, no, this is not okay. You can only use Pierce Brosnan. Take all the other people out.
I can kind of see that, just because, there could be future games that should solely be about them. And it kind of surprises me that they let them keep Jaws and Odd Job, since they're from other movies. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. But
I can see why they clamp down on that. But you know what exists out there somewhere? I read about there is a cartridge somewhere that still has all those Bonds in there from the development.
Well, yeah. See,
it never went for sale or anything. I mean, there's only one somewhere.
Do you remember how we talked about in cheat codes how the developers would include these things, and instead of taking them out, they would just kind of like remove the algorithm or remove the coding that would allow access? They just kind of like put a Band-Aid. I think that might be what's going on there. I think maybe those characters are still actually in the game. They're just not accessible to the player.
Yeah, I read some things along that line. I actually want to say that. Did
you see the thing about the ZX Spectrum emulator?
Like there were a bunch of other games on this cartridge that they just disabled. Yeah, like several games. That,
like the ZX Spectrum emulators in there.
Yeah, and I want to say like there's been some mods, like patches that have been developed, since that allow people to access that. But I mean, I'm having a hard time loading Warzone over here, so I get my graphics card updated. So I'm pretty sure I ain't gonna pull that one off. But
oh goodness, man. So what else? There's just so much that we could really talk about here. Something that we didn't mention that's worthy of just a quick minute is that, and we kind of talked about how the AI of the enemies in the game was innovative in the responses to being how they would be shot. If you shot a guy in the head, he would move as if he'd been shot in the head. If you shot him in the butt, he'd jump up and grab his butt. If you shot him in the leg, so on and so forth. But what we didn't mention was that the way that they achieved this was motion capture, bro. Like one of the very first motion capture setups ever. I think it was actually, you're going to love this. The machinery that they used is called FOB. I'm talking about in the studios of Rare. When they were using this motion capture equipment, the actual device was called an FOB, which stands for flock of birds. That's the actual name of the motion capture equipment, flock of birds.
Really?
Yeah, and it was very primitive tech at the time. I think one of the developers was talking about how he was like working on one game and then went onto the motion capture room to start working on the movements for GoldenEye. And that it was very difficult because the cables were very short and kind of like plugged into the wall. And that, he was always like, they were worried about like doing a move and then trying to stand up and choking themselves out with the cabling and stuff. So, that's huge. That's it's just so big time for 1997. You know, pre
Very
Y2K.
innovative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very innovative. And I think, man, I'm glad they put that work in.
So am I, man.
Yeah.
So am I. So, I mean, what does this all mean? Like, how many, like, I know that when the game released in 1997, they did very well. It released in August, and they did sell a bunch of units. But then
8 million.
no, I don't think it was 8 million by the end of 1997. This is what I know, and then you can drop the numbers on us, Tomahawk.
Right.
What I know is that, and this is from, again, researching this a little bit. I might be wrong, but what I found is in 1997, they did very well in Christmas, got great numbers. And then in 1998, they surpassed those numbers greatly, sold a bunch of units. The game was starting to do really well. They had a really good advertisement, you know, they had really good commercials and publicity that really made you get that tickle of, man, I could be James Bond, like we were talking about. So they did well in 1998. But then in 1999, they surpassed both 1997 and 1998 numbers combined, bro. Sold a ton of games, man. And it was doing so well, in fact, that Nintendo was like, hey, why don't we just give 30 GoldenEye games to every Blockbuster? That was another part.
Oh,
yeah, bro, that was another part of their advertising genius.
That is pretty slick. Yeah.
Blockbuster was, dude, it was the highest renting game for them in those years. It was never there. Did you ever go and try and rent GoldenEye from Blockbuster? Good luck, Tomahawk.
That's because I rented it once and never took it back. Still got it. Yeah. Next time you go to Blockbuster, you get a new account.
Oh, man. You know, there's still one Blockbuster left, I think. It's in.
You think it's in Oregon?
Yeah, I think it's in Bend, Oregon, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might be wrong, but
Interesting.
anyways.
Yeah.
So
No, I saw something just recently where one of these cartridges sold for like $1,200. Like there were some demo cartridges that were supposed to be sent back in at some point. I want to say that you know, one of them is this video. I think it was a TikTok video was saying that this one had to survive the trash somewhere. But yeah, it just recently sold on eBay for like $1,200. There's a demo cart out there somewhere.
that's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, you know, the game is still, it's still in the gameverse 24 years later. People want to play it.
Yeah. You know, I guess as we're really unpacking this and I think about things, it's probably not fair and it's tough to compare like for best video game ever, but best first-person shooter ever, I think is a fair category. You know, I do feel like some games just sort of have, you know, I'm going to use Pac-Man as an example. Like we could go ask anybody, then like non-gamers or people that have never played a video game, what Pac-Man is, and I think they would still say that's a video game, and maybe it's, you know, achieved some sort of notoriety that those same people wouldn't know what GoldenEye 007 on the N64 all meant, but
Well, a lot of folks would be like, oh, that's a movie.
yeah, James Bond and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think if we narrow down a little bit and we ask that question, is this the best first person shooter ever? And we think about that definition of best, you know, being the most excellent, effective, or desirable type or quality. And what does a video game set out to do?
Man,
when it's made?
You're getting all sophisticated on me, Tomahawk. I love it, dude. Keep going, keep going.
So what's your answer, man? I mean, what have we found?
Well, look, this is the thing. The game holds a spot in my heart. And, you know, for us not to talk about GoldenEye on this podcast, where we like to talk about, you know, nostalgic games and things of the past and how they've evolved and created the gaming experiences of today, I think this is the best the best first-person shooter or best multiplayer shooter or best shooter in general of all time in the sense of what it brought to the table. This game brought so much to the table, opening so many doors to future shooter games that in that specific regard of, hey, what did you bring to the table? GoldenEye 007 brought it all, baby. It brought it all.
Like it brought the table.
And it brought the table for the console. That's a huge point. We're not talking about PC gaming or I guess we'll just versus PC gaming. Console didn't have that yet. Console didn't have a first-person shooter that had a huge impact on the world, and that's what GoldenEye 007 did for console. It showed the world that, hey, you can have an addictive, replayable, 100 times over, repurchasable video game on console, first-person shooter. Yes, you can. And it paved the way for future games on console. And better yet, I'll give you a huge example. Rare was purchased by Microsoft, and GoldenEye 007 was a tremendous inspiration for a little franchise that was later presented to us by Microsoft. You know what little franchise that was? Halo, baby. Master Chief in the house, y'all.
Yeah.
El jefe maestro, perro.
Sí, papi.
So we got the Ojo Dorado and the Jefe Maestro, like GoldenEye and Master Chief. A little bit of that Ojo Dorado, GoldenEye. You know what I'm saying?
Jugar todo dia.
Jugar todo dia. Play all day. That's right, Chuck T. Praise God, baby. Oh man, so in my opinion, Ovox, me as a person that really loved the game, and yeah, I'm certainly a little biased, but I'm also, I love playing other games. I play on PC, I play on PlayStation, and I try to be as objective as possible. Is it the best shooter of all time? No, certainly not. The graphics do not hold up today. The game is played on a controller that only has one analog stick. There's other aspects as well. Does it hold up in the technical, graphical aspects? Negative. It does not. Does it hold up as an addictive, replayable, extremely guaranteed fun time all day? Greatest of all time. But yeah, again, and in the sense that it opened up so many doors and paved the way for so many future games. Yes, it was the greatest of all time in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you've nailed it. I'm tempted for discussion purposes to sort of play devil's advocate here, but I don't know.
Devil me up, baby.
In this case,
devil me up.
I think you hit on something there that maybe we didn't unpack there earlier as far as it being the first one on the console, like bringing this concept to the console.
Yeah, because Doom was on PC.
Yeah, Quake and those other things were being played on PC. So
Half-Life.
Yeah, so I think that's an important point there, and it laid the groundwork, like you said, for all of a sudden this Microsoft purchasing it and pushing towards Halo, and then we've all sure put some money into that, and they've reaped some benefits. So yeah, and when I'm thinking of that definition of best and what this game did for me, and comparing that to other first-person shooters, I don't know that the quality, like you said, some of the things don't hold up, but as far as if I put it, especially if I put a time for its time qualifier in there,
100%.
I say, hands down, it's the best ever So,
Dude.
yeah, I'm gonna say that it for its time, like it doesn't hold up, but that kind of, yeah, I want to finish this point and just say, I say that for me and my experience, it has been one of the best, if not the best, first-person shooters that ever existed. Period.
Gosh.
For reasons that we've disclosed.
Moment of silence. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And then what I kind of want to hit here, now that we've answered that, and one thing that we talked that we would say is that this new remastered version of this, and these new versions that are coming out, if they fill some of these holes, if we're playing with that 2 analog sticks and it has an online multiplayer and such, what about then?
Well, we definitely want to touch on that as a segue to wrap up this episode. But do you happen to have any numbers, Tomahawk, just to kind of wrap a number around what we're talking about and just how amazing this game was?
It kind of went in phases, like you'd kind of shared with us there earlier. I think by 1998 it had sold a couple million copies, and then by 2001 it had sold 7 million more, for a total of around 8 million copies. 8 and some change there, obviously, and so. That's a lot of human beings right there, son. I mean,
sí, señor. Sí, señor.
Good memories for all of us, all sides of the pond, and yeah.
Well, all sides of the pond. Hey, I got a fun fact for you. You mentioned that pond there. Did you know that James Bond, GoldenEye 007 was banned in Germany? Banned, bro.
I saw they did some kind of mod to this game for in Germany, didn't they?
Well, all I know is that Germany's got a list of what is kind of just known as content that's harmful for youth, and don't quote me on this. I certainly don't know the ins and outs of the legalities of this in Germany, and I've never even been to Germany. But what I noticed and I spotted online was that, speaking of remastered versions, that it had recently been lifted. The ban on 007 had been lifted in Germany, and the hype and cloud around it was that they had lifted it because that they're about to release the remastered version of GoldenEye 007. So I saw that and I'm like, well, wait a minute. If it got lifted, that means it was banned at some point. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, man, GoldenEye 007 was banned in Germany. That means that they weren't allowed to sell it and it wasn't allowed to be advertised. Period.
I saw right before it came out, there were some kind of mods that had to be made for certain locations, and there was some specific part of the campaign that had to be taken out or that didn't exist. Maybe the objectives didn't exist because of something. And I also kind of at the end of the game where they show the characters alive again, almost like taking a bow after a movie sense, was to kind of, just say, hey, this was all sort of a production and a film, a play of sorts.
I think
nobody's dead.
I think it was the head of Nintendo that had asked for that, and it didn't make a whole bunch of sense to me because the argument was hey, this is kind of not what Nintendo's all about. We're kind of a little bit more conservative over here at Nintendo, and what we this game is great and all, but we would like to have an end scene where everyone's shaking hands or kumbayaing and stuff, and that obviously didn't happen. But I gotta admit, the end scene, man, where James Bond and Natalia are just making out, that's kind of a weird. They're just sucking face for 30 minutes at the end of the game. Kind of strange. Yeah. But I was gonna mention something, Tomahawk. I was gonna mention something and I forgot what it was. It wasn't. Oh, another thing was that they took out was the game was originally going to be a lot more gory. There was going to be a lot more blood. Instead of just red stains where you shoot the character, there was going to be a lot more blood. But I'm kind of confused with that as well because Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, came out, I think 5 or 6 months before, in February of 1997. And man, in that game, if you nail someone with a arrow or with a pistol or something, dude, the guy literally goes and all this blood just gushes out of his neck, and it's like, oh. You know, I'm just like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Because, like, yeah, or maybe that's why they decided they didn't want James Bond to be like that. You know, they didn't want it to be like too gory. I don't know. But I thought it was funny.
They've gone down this road a few times, like trying to make, you know, sort of a tie-in with video games and violence and you know, blood and gore being taken out of, you know, games like we talked about, the Mortal Kombat codes, you know, to get it back in there, you know, in a time period not very far past this one. So
yeah,
you can imagine there in 1997, that was kind of a big deal. And, you know, it's okay for us to watch it in the movie. Like,
yeah. Yeah, you know.
I don't know.
The Lethal Weapon here and there, and it's all good.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see those tie-ins like super tight, but you know, maybe erring on the side of caution makes sense. And if you know, taking something out to get the game into those folks in Germany's hands, you know, makes sense, I guess.
The game did amazing. It really just had a huge impact on the gaming world. It opened up doors. It's a milestone in history of gaming, that's for sure. It was, as Tomahawk mentioned, top 3. I saw places where it was top 2, even defeating Mario Kart in all-time best-selling video game for Nintendo's 5th generation console, which was the Nintendo 64, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was the 5th generation. So the game, you know, we can keep saying this in different ways, but ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're trying to say is this game was huge. And it did extremely well, and it did great things. So much so that, you know, we're not going to get into the story and the ins and outs of how the licensing and intellectual property moved around from, you know, Rare to Microsoft to EA to Activision to all these different, you know, released on PlayStation, released on Wii. But we do need to kind of mention, because it is big time, and I think it's certainly something we're going to get involved in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how, but we're going to do this. Is back in, I think it was 2008, might have been 2010, I might be wrong, but they were remastering this game to be released on Microsoft Xbox 360 Arcade back then. The game was basically done, bro. It was fully remastered. It looks amazing. In fact, you can go on YouTube right now and type in something to that lines or effects, and you'll find it. It's I don't remember the name of the YouTuber, but it's on there. You can find it. And it looks amazing. So they basically remastered all of 007. It's ready to rock and roll. And then because of licensing, hubbub, and issues and all that, I think it was MGM or EOC or EAC. I don't remember the name of the company up at the top. But again, someone came in at the end of the day and was just like, no, sorry. So there was no agreement, and it got scrapped. But in recent weeks, we've gotten some news. You want to touch on that news, Tomahawk?
Yeah, I hear, what is it?
You hear rumors across the grapevine?
June 12th, that possibly sort of almost like a little shadow release here of something coming out for the Xbox Live Arcade. That, they're going to just, I think some achievements have shown up, like in places that folks can get to them, and it kind of shows that obviously something's coming. And
because that's a huge thing. If Microsoft published achievement library, an achievement catalog for a game, little burp there, for a game, I mean, that's got to mean some seriousness, right?
Yeah, and it's already up in there. I think this has been leaked a couple times. I want to say, you know, maybe even by the same guy that was the source for this one, you know, which is sort of a counterpoint to, you know, maybe it's not as immediate as we think. But I want to say there's, what is it, something going on there in Bethesda?
Well, they're going to have you know how the companies have kind of like conventions or shows where they kind of announce what they're up to, what they're getting into. The PlayStation one, I think, was like a week or two ago, called State of Play. And now Xbox Bethesda is having their showcase.
Yeah. So, yeah, a word on the street. They may be dropping this thing.
Man, the word on the calle, la palabra en la calle, pero, es is that they're gonna be announcing it tomorrow, man. And I don't know if it's gonna be a main announcement or just like a shadow shadow drop type of thing announcement.
Yeah.
But a lot of the big YouTubers are saying that it's gonna be mentioned. Like they're gonna flat out just be like, "Yo, GoldenEye's back."
Yeah.
And again, this isn't a re-envisioning like Reloaded was. This isn't like a spin-off like James Bond Racing or whatever the name of that other GoldenEye Racer or something where you just drive cars around. This isn't Tomorrow Never Dies released on PlayStation. This is GoldenEye 007, the Nintendo 64 version, remastered with fresh textures, 60 frames per second, going to be released on a dual analog Xbox controller. 2 analog sticks for our 2 thumbs. Beautiful. And it's going to be available on, well, it sounds like the new Xbox platform, which I've lost track of the names of them all, but it's going to be in their live arcade, it sounds like.
Is it going to have online multiplayer?
Of course, man. It's got to. Why would they do that?
Oh, my Lord.
It's not like gaming companies, never make mistakes. Tomahawk. God.
No, sir.
They're always
No,
right.
sir.
They never make mistakes.
No,
They never cash grab.
There's no cheaters in this game. Like, yeah, well, man, I feel like I see this kind of filling a role for me. Like, let's say we've had a few rounds of Warzone and maybe things aren't going our way, or we just won, several in a row and want to quit on a high note and say, let's switch over there and, do a little change.
Get a
up
little
here
vintage.
And, yeah.
Go a little retro.
Get that, like you said, rockets only.
Yeah, slappers only.
Slappers only. Judy chopping into a few people.
Come and chopping that ass.
Yeah.
Where are you
the
on the top?
motion.
Just kidding. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, get my Dime on Dave on there.
Look,
so, yeah.
I think what we're going to see here is kind of like a repeat of something that happened back in the 90s, late 90s when the game came out, was just a bunch of people going, damn, I really want to play this game, but I don't have a Nintendo 64. Right? So that's kind of going to happen again here, I think, a little bit.
Xbox.
Yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. I still haven't been able to get a PlayStation 5 yet because of all the, scalping and, shipping issues, or I don't know. I mean, they're out there, but they're kind of spendy,
And there's an app, too, that I have something, where I've accessed a few games, Microsoft Xbox games on my computer. I want to say that's how I've got to the newest Battletoads. So I'll have to do a little research on that and see if, there's a way to get to that Xbox Live arcade content from PC, I wonder.
Yeah.
But,
well, we'll have to see how that plays out. I mean, we're literally, in fact, we're recording this on Saturday, the 11th. We'll try and get this published on the day of the announcement. So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
yeah.
Or today, if you're listening to this on the day of its release. If I'm able to get it out tomorrow, I'll do my best.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Dedos cruzados, way. Actually, fingers crossed in Spanish isn't actually like a direct translation of fingers crossed. They call it little monkeys.
Little monkeys.
Changuitos.
It means the same thing though. Like
good luck,
you're
or like hoping for something. And they're like, what? They say,
Yeah.
voy a hacer changuitos. Little, okay. Simone way.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I feel like they put those in there to make it hard for me to learn.
Oh, your Spanish is great. I love your Spanish, Chuck Tomahawk.
Yeah. See, me llamo es ChukTomahawk.
Me llamo S. No, all you have to. Oh no, I don't want to tell you how to say it right, because then you're not going to say it like that anymore, and it's
It's more fun for.
It's perfect, Chuck. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Man, there's so much about this topic. I feel like we're forgetting something. Is there anything on your mind that we haven't touched on?
Let me double check my notes here as we're thinking about it. I think. Yeah, just those new releases coming out.
Yeah, we got to keep an eye on them.
I think And I'd love to see, more of this. Like, I don't understand why, like, as these new Bond movies come, like, there's not a game like this every time, to some degree.
Yeah, man. I mean, just looking at the research, it just seems like there's a lot of heads butting in regard to the intellectual property. Everyone wants to get their piece of that pie. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They want to get a piece of that green pie, baby.
I guess other than that, I just need to know where Xenia on the top is at now. How can I get in touch?
I can get on the bottom of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's keep it PG for the younger listeners. Not that they ain't out there doing crazy, behave yourselves out there. If there's anything I want to say is, if you've never played GoldenEye 007, regardless of your age, and you have an opportunity to play it, or you have a friend that has a Nintendo 64 stashed away that maybe you can plug that bad boy in, which probably might be a challenge in itself these days with the TVs and how advanced they are. But if you have any opportunity or way to play the original GoldenEye 007 on Nintendo 64, just give it a shot. I guarantee you can do it with your buddies. You'll have a great time. No, it's not going to be the amazing quality of Warzone or Call of Duty or Battlefield 1 or any of these, Fortnite. No, nothing even close. But at the very least, you'll kind of have a opportunity to see the beginnings of those first-person shooters that you love. Certainly Halo at the very least, because we know that Halo was greatly inspired, according to this research, by GoldenEye 007. So, yeah, that's all. I think you should check it out if you haven't played it before. Or, we'll see what the announcement is tomorrow. And if you have an Xbox, maybe you'll have access to the remastered version sooner than later. And hell, just play that one. You know what I'm saying? Play that one, man.
Yeah.
With that Xbox controller. Oosh. Damn.
Them double sticks, yeah. Yeah, I think, especially if there's like some friends over for a party and you can convince everyone to jump on that old Nintendo 64 and just know that, on Amazon you can get a, I think it's RCA to HDMI adapter to kind of make that happen if your TV doesn't have those,
there we go,
hookups these days. And it's just, it's a level playing ground. If you're all for, playing in there, we don't have those advancements of the newest game, but everybody's having to struggle with the same situation there. And it's fun to see.
Yeah.
So, it's worth your time.
Yeah. And just be mindful. You want to make sure you're playing with people you care about and love, and that you're not going to lose a relationship over a video game with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right. Or a tooth.
or some arm hair. Who knows? Shit. Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else, Tomahawk? I think we've covered it all, man.
I think that covers it, man. We got some games to play today, so
fellow gamers out there, if there's anything that you're screaming into the speakers right now, you didn't talk about this, you didn't talk about that, please hit us up. Let us know what we missed. We'd love to hear your thoughts about the game, your best memories. You can hit us up via email. You can hit us up on Facebook, and we'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoy the podcast, please, like us, review us, star us. We depend on you, the listeners, to get out there to more folks and more gamers. Hopefully, this thing will keep on growing little by little. And we're very, very grateful for our crowd out there that's been tuning in for every episode. We love you guys and gals.
Yeah.
And I love you, ChukTomahawk. No homo.
Love you too, Ovox. Peace and love to you and everyone.
Yeah.
And hopefully see y'all next time.